So you're live.
Welcome everyone to the Cadsdown Business Support Centre for the December Plans Committee meeting. There is no planned fire drill this morning, so should the fire alarm go off, please leave the building the way that you came in and do not use the lift. Cadsdown have installed new technology in these rooms, including microphones on the ceiling, which will make the audio quality of the recording and streaming very clear. Can I remind members as a matter of courtesy not to talk over one another or hold separate conversations with one another during the meeting? It is possible that such conversations will be heard on YouTube. I would like to ask the committee members to introduce themselves by stating their name and the ward that they represent, and likewise can the officers please introduce themselves. So if I start on my right.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Doug Smith, representing Great Torrington.
Good morning all, Phil Pennington, Monkley and Putford.
Good morning, I'm Jane Whittaker and I represent Northam and Orchard Hill.
Good morning, Doug Bushby, Bedford North.
Good morning, Karen Hewlett, Democratic Services.
Good morning, Kirsty Brown, Democratic Services.
Good morning, Nigel Keneally, Milton and Tamarside.
Good morning, Kerry O'Rourke, Appledore Ward.
Good morning everybody, Chris Leather, Northam and Orchard Hill Ward.
Morning everybody, Peter Hames, Appledore.
I'm Rosemary Lonk and I represent Two Rivers and Three Moors. So can the officers start?
I'm Sarah Chappell, I'm the Conservation Officer at Torridge.
Good morning all, Peter Stapley, Planning Officer at Torridge.
Good morning, I'm Helen Smith, Planning Manager at Torridge.
Morning, Stacey Dorey, Head of Legal and Governance.
Right, moving on to the agenda then. Item number 1, apologies.
None received, Chair.
Okay. Item number 2, to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of November, pages 5 to 13. There is one amendment regarding Councillor Keneally. He's down as being in the committee, but he wasn't part of the committee. So can that be amended, please?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much.
I'll move those minutes, Chair.
Thank you.
Second them, Chair.
Sorry, could you do the seconder? Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Bushby.
4.
Councillor Hames.
4.
Councillor Keneally.
4.
Councillor...
Wait, no, I've got to abstain.
Thank you.
Get right.
Councillor Leather.
4.
Councillor Locke.
4.
Councillor O'Rourke.
4.
Councillor Pennington.
4.
Councillor Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Whittaker.
4.
That's 7 for, 2 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Members with interest to declare should refer to the agenda item and describe the nature of their interest when the item is being considered. Elected members of DCC and town and parish councils who have considered the planning application by virtue of their membership of that council hold a personal interest and are deemed to have considered the application separately, and the express views of that council do not bind the member concerned, who consider the application of fresh, which may include further information. Item number 4, agreement of agendas between parts 1 and 2. We have no part 2. Item number 5, urgent matters. I have none. Stacey or Helen? No. Okay. Item number 6, public participation. The order of speaking is a member of the town or parish council, 2 members of the public against, 2 members of the public in support. All of the above have 3 minutes each. And finally, the ward member may speak, and they are not limited to 3 minutes. So moving on to item number 7, the planning applications. Application A, number 1/0567/25/LA, change of use of library to create multifunctional sport and fitness facility, including the installation of 3 air source heat pumps and roof-mounted solar panels. And it's on pages 14 to 63 of your agenda. Are there any declarations of interest? I now ask the officer to give the presentation, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And as you said, this application is 1/0567/2025/LA the change of use to the library to create multifunctional sport and fitness facilities and associated alterations, including the installation of 3 air source heat pumps and roof-mounted solar panels. Members will be aware this was heard at the November committee. It was deferred to allow further consideration with regards to the impact arising from renewable energy provisions on residential amenity and the character and appearance of the designated heritage asset. The applicant has not amended the application, so it is as before. That was heard at November committee, so I will now run through the same slides for the application. So here we have the location plan. You can see the site's location within Bideford. We have the Bideford Bridge on the right. The application site outlined in red there in the centre of your screen. Next slide, please. And here we have the principal elevation. There's the town hall and the library in the red brick in front of you there. To the left we have Tanton's Hotel, and behind you can see the church. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here we have another principal elevation photo. Again, the application site is the red brick building, as I'm sure you're aware. Next slide, please. And here we have the northern elevation. Again, has significant architectural merit, red brick building. Next slide, please. And here we have some distant views looking back onto the site from the other side of the River Tor. You see the application site outline in red on the building, red brick there. Next slide, please. And here we have some views from within the churchyard, behind the application site, looking back onto the building. So these roof elevations will be where the solar panels are located. So on the left, you were quite far into the churchyard, and then on the right there, we're stood at the church doors. And here we have, from the public pedestrian walkway behind the site, a view of the back onto the site. So you can see the boundary wall there, the site on the other side of that. And again, this is the application site. You can see that where we were on the public footpath, just behind the wall on the right there, and the application site on the left. And this is the extension which is going to be replaced. We have an aerial view of the site. So we have the town hall element on the left-hand side of that, and then the library element on the right. The gym is going in the right, which already has planning permission, and then the co-working office spaces on the left. Next slide, please. And here we have some internal office spaces. So these are to be changed to co-working spaces. Next slide, please. And again, these are going to be the existing internal office spaces, which are to be changed to co-working spaces and co-working meeting rooms. And here we have the internal corridor, which has been opened up recently as part of the works, and there's intended to be a small lift to get the change in heights in this location. Next slide, please. And here we have the internal library space currently, which is to be changed to a gym, which already has planning permission, I would just add. And again, the internal library spaces. Just to run through the plans, so here we have the location plan, the north elevation, the east elevation, the south elevation, the west elevations, and again the west elevations. This is showing the height of the air source heat pump frame and the height of the replacement extension in relation to that boundary wall out back. And here we have the site plan. Here we have the ground floor plan, the ground floor use plan, separating the uses, the first floor plan. So only minor amendments on the first and second floor plans. The gym roof schedule of works. a gym section showing the mechanical heat and ventilation systems, the internal doors that are to be replaced. And this is the previously approved ground floor plans. This is an extant permission. A proposed ground floor plan, just to see the comparison between them. The material considerations are the principle of development, impact on heritage assets, design, impact, character, appearance, impact on amenity, sustainability, access, parking and highway safety, drainage and flood risk, impact on wildlife and ecology, including ecological impact and biodiversity net gain, other matters, planning balance and conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I'll now go to the public speakers list. The first registered speaker is Mark Simmons. If you'd like to come to the front and settle, you have 3 minutes. It's all right, we've got you timed as well.
Pretty close to the mark this time.
Go.
Okay. I was hoping I wouldn't have to come back today, but after reading the amendment, my heart sank. There are so many misleading elements that I can't cover it in 3 minutes, but to summarise a 19-page document, we've ignored everyone's concerns, haven't taken anything on board, and want to do exactly the same thing we proposed last time because my civil servant colleagues have said it's okay. The truth is, if this was anything other than a council project, it would have been kicked into touch a long time ago by those very council departments who have rubber stamped it. So let's have a look at some of those. First of all, the conservation officer, who has approved this on the basis, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the solar panels will only be seen from the church doors, which is not true if you know the area. And it's okay to knock down the wall and put in air pumps because Tanton's Hotel had a roller blind approved decades ago, which isn't there now. Tourism is supposed to be a material factor in this decision, but it's clear the applicant doesn't consider this. If it's okay, if it's not okay, if you can see this from the old bridge, it shouldn't be okay if you can see it from St Mary's Church and Tower Street. It's all part of Bideford's Heritage Trail, which we actively encourage tourists to see. But at least there was some effort to justify that rubber stamp, unlike the Environmental Protection's single paragraph, which says, and keep in mind, this is the department we're supposed to complain to when it's noisy, and it will be. The assessment outlines slight exceedance of source noise over background levels at neighbouring Tanton's Court. However, having regard for the very slight exceedance and the fact that the neighbouring property has no external amenity areas, any concerns for amenity impact are allayed. Again, I point out that the Commission report is a best case scenario with units running at a maximum of 50% because that's what the applicant said they'd be running at. It doesn't account for the communal area of the church, our single glazed old double windows, or the fact that we all have gardens in that area. Can I also remind you that if these units don't provide enough energy to supply the building in a 12-month period, they'll be removed according to the plan. And who's going to pay for that? This is just virtue signalling at the expense of the town and local residents. I said at the last meeting that this will set a precedent. I understand St Mary's Church is already having discussions to do the same thing. I myself have got a quote for the double glazed plastic windows and solar panels, and don't expect there to be an issue because I have a copy of the assessment that says it's okay because there's a climate crisis, you'll only be able to see it from the church doors, and Tanton's had a roller shutter approved over 30 years ago. If that is the criteria for which we're now looking at listed buildings in a conservation area, we might as well just bulldoze the heart of Bideford and be done with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
10 seconds.
And next registered speaker is Paul Metcalfe, please. Again, you have 3 minutes when you're settled.
No, it won't be that long. Thank you. I live opposite the old library at 5 Church Walk. I'm opposing this application on the following grounds: the air source pumps. I understand that a human's voice is approximately 50 to 65 decibels. We are able to hear voices in the churchyard when we are inside our home. We will therefore hear equipment running at this level of noise. We would personally be affected by the noise of the heat source pumps, but there would also be a negative impact to the immediate area. Church Walk and Tower Street are on the Heritage Trail and we have visitors all year round. the noise will clearly have a negative impact on what is a very quiet area. Now, with regard to the solar panels, our upstairs windows look across to the town hall, so we'll certainly be able to see the solar panels. The view will be blighted by them, but more importantly, if solar panels are granted on a council-owned Grade 2 listed building, this will set a precedent for applications from owners of other listed buildings in the town. Bideford has some wonderful architecture, and seeing solar panels all over the town would be a great shame and not at all positive. And of course, most of Bideford is in a conservation area. Surely allowing solar panels on listed buildings within a conservation area makes a mockery of the concept. My wife and I feel it is a complete travesty that this application is having to be reconsidered by this committee again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next witness speaker is Adrian Redwood, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Morning. Thank you for this opportunity to clarify some of the concerns regarding the decarbonisation content of this application. By way of background, Council approved the refurbishment and reuse of the Town Hall and former library for community use in October 2024. The report to members was part of the wider strategy to maintain deteriorating assets and make a positive contribution towards the Council's carbon commitment. This follows the earlier approval to proceed with the project and the change of use application that was granted in May 2024. Since then, officers have been working on the design and delivery of the scheme in accordance with the Council's strategy for accessibility, sustainability and carbon reduction commitments. Decarbonising the building is required to meet the UK's legally binding climate target and to meet Torridge District Council's own climate emergency declaration. The air source heat pumps and solar PV will contribute to the carbon reduction targets and to help future-proof the building. Accommodating low carbon technologies often represents installation challenges within listed building and conservation area settings, and in this instance we also have the historic Bideford Bridge. So the options were limited, and the only viable option for the location of the air source heat pumps was within the rear well area, but the units do need to be set at ground level to achieve the operational airflow required. The design and location of the units has been developed in consultation with the independent acoustician who has modelled the noise levels and the units against the background noise levels for this site. No adverse noise impact is expected. This has been further assessed by the Environmental Protection Team as part of their statutory consultation, and the Environmental Protection Team consider a suitable noise impact assessment has been undertaken and the resultant noise will not result in a significant adverse impact on neighbouring amenity. In terms of the PV installation, there are limited opportunities for siting the panels on this building, and the proposals utilise the main south-facing roof areas within the centre of the premises that have been shown on the roof plans within the application. The PV panels will generate energy savings, allowing on-site electricity generation to lower the running costs of the facility, and the entire ground floor areas will be heated by electricity with localised electric water heaters in the kitchens and washrooms and all electric showers within the gym facilities. In summary, the proposal represents a well-considered design solution to meet the Council's strategic objectives for the community and the decarbonisation of the existing estate. Thank you.
Everyone, 3 minutes. Thank you very much. And finally, the ward member, Councillor Tinsley, please.
Good morning. Well, I asked to speak at the committee today because I attended the earlier meeting which discussed this proposal, and I was somewhat, I would say, frustrated by the discussion and some of the misconceptions that were being expressed. So I've been looking at this proposal since the summer, when I met with the residents of Church Walk, and their concerns that they expressed were basically three. Firstly, that they didn't agree with it being the change of use being to a gym. Secondly, they were concerned about the solar panels on the roof and the visual harm. And they were concerned about the noise of the air source heat pumps. On the change of use, obviously that bird has flown. And this is what I told the residents, whatever you think about the viability or the suitability of the gym, we all agree that the building needs renovating and it ought to be kept in public ownership as a community asset. On solar, I had a lot of sympathy with their view. It is a listed building. It's very pretty from the back as well as the front. Church Walk is one of the most attractive parts of Old Bideford. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm keen on heritage. It's what drew me into standing as a councillor in the first place. And I've been supporting residents who want to restore the cobbles and make a heritage walk up to the Pannier Market. That's a brilliant proposal that I would really like to see taken forward in the future. So I went to see the conservation officer, and as colleagues would know, she's a stickler for preservation. She's more purist and more zealous than I think many colleagues here would probably desire. But being a heritage building, even a listed building, doesn't preclude having solar panels. It can be done sensitively, and there are many examples around the country and here in Torridge as well. This building has a complex arrangement of roofs with turrets and very mixed sight lines, some not visible as you come down Church Walk. So it's not going to be an in-your-face solar array that I think some people fear. Some people suggested last time that the impact would be lessened if we used integrated solar tiles. But the conservation officer considers that although the visual harm would be less, the actual harm to the fabric of the heritage building would be greater. And I think we have to accept her judgment that the proposed solution does cause some harm, some visual harm, but that is what members of the committee must balance and weigh against the benefits of delivering renewable energy and heat, policy ST16, and supporting the sustainability of the building for the public who are going to be using the building and have increased opportunities to access and appreciate it, which is policy ST15. On air source heat pumps, this is a more technical question, and I certainly didn't have the knowledge and expertise to judge whether the noise of these installations would cause a nuisance or not. When I raised the concerns of the residents with the major projects team, they were astonished that the concern was coming from buildings so far away. An independent acoustic survey had been conducted because they were concerned about the potential noise impact of the residents of Tanton's Court, which is right next to where the heat pumps are going to be. And the results of that survey showed that disturbance would be very minimal, even right up close. I get that Church Walk is a lovely quiet area, except when the church bells are ringing. I went there the other day when they were ringing. It was a hell of a noise, I tell you. And I get it that it's a bowl with particular acoustics, which makes sound carry. But looking at the survey and looking at the positioning of the heat pumps right at the end of Nunnery Walk, a long way from the houses on Church Walk, and not only behind the boundary wall, but behind the retaining wall of the churchyard, which acts as a baffle, there's no evidence that noise will be a problem. However, as a result of the questions that I raised, the height of the heat pumps has been lowered and various mitigation measures have been implemented. I don't want to contradict residents, but to reassure them that I've delved deeply into the matters they raised with me. Scepticism is very often a good thing, and but I would encourage members to base their judgments on what's in the report, not on unsupported assumptions or misconceptions. And certainly, if this proposal goes through and it turns out that the experts were wrong and there is noise, then I would be the first person to come back to officers to demand that something was done. Thank you.
Right, there's no further public speakers, so I'll throw the matter open for discussion. Who'd like to kick off, please? Yes, Councillor Bushby.
Thank you, Chair. Well, to say I'm disappointed that this application has come back almost in identical form to the previous one in November is a bit of an understatement. The officer presenting the report is once again gone through a comprehensive list. Well, we know that the planning permission has already been granted for conversion of a gym, so I don't really know why we wasted time going through all the other stuff. What we're here to talk about today is the air source heat pumps and the solar panels. Now, at the previous meeting, we were led to believe that there was an alternative to the PV panels on the roof that can be used in a sensitive area, particularly in a conservation area such as this. They are more expensive, but it would appear that that's just been dismissed on the grounds that it may affect the structure of the building in some way. I've no idea, and I can't say that would be the case. You know, it's probably timber trusses in the roof, and I'm sure a good carpenter could do a good job in actually making that happen. So I'm disappointed that we haven't even touched on that. You know, they were more expensive apparently, but the savings that could be made in not having the air source heat pumps, because I am convinced that they will cause a problem, they will cause issues, and this is going to be an expensive installation cost. And to say that they could potentially be removed or something done to them, after the fact is a complete nonsense. If you're going to spend, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands on 3 large air source heat pumps, they're not going to be removed. Once they're in, and that'll be the end of it. So, as much as it pains me to go against the officers on an application like this, I'm afraid I cannot support this application in its present form. In my opinion, they should go ahead, convert the gym, do whatever they've got to do to the building, forget the air source heat pumps and the solar PV. We've got a lot of other buildings in and around the town that we occupy where we could put solar PV on to help our carbon footprint quite easily. It doesn't have to be on a sensitive area like the town hall, and I have every sympathy with the residents that are living in that area. I wouldn't want it if I lived there, and I think it's a shame that it's just come back in exactly the same form as it was before. So I will be recommending refusal.
We do have our conservation officer here, so does anyone want to put any questions directly to her? Yes, Councillor Whittaker.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Well, I'm with Councillor Bushby entirely, and sad to say, because I know that the officers have probably worked extremely hard on this. For me, this is an iconic building in a heritage setting that we should cherish. And after that, there really isn't a great deal more I could say, but I'm going to. We shouldn't be thinking about doing things in an area that is so sensitive and so heritage-based just to meet our climate targets. As Councillor Bushby said, there must be a lot of other places in and around Bideford where we can do so. So, I am really sad to think that we are looking at one of the most beautiful buildings in the town and thinking, oh yeah, it's okay to do it because we've got a target to meet. Yeah, we must meet the target, otherwise we'll all disappear under the water or whatever. in the fullness of time. But we don't have to do it to spoil something that's so precious in our town. I just, really, I almost can't be bothered to say anymore because it frustrates me so much. So I'm with Councillor Bushby. I will not be recommending a grant.
So has anyone got any questions to direct to our conservation officer? No. Councillor Hames.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I must disagree. The question of climate change is absolutely paramount, and I'm constantly worried about this council or some councillors that don't have the sort of urgency and passion about things, really. Agreed, this is an iconic building. I also nearly said archaic, sorry, iconic building. It has great features, but the officers have done a lot of work on this project, on this application. They've assessed, they're experienced people. They've assessed the situation and the balance that's needed in terms of aesthetics, etc. The conservation officer has looked at it in detail, and she has recommended that solar would be appropriate, and because of the turrets, etc., on that particular area of roof, there wouldn't be a significant visual impact. She's also cited other historic buildings locally. I believe Clovelly Church, a great listed building in Torrington, I believe. I think I sent details round to councillors about listed buildings all over the country where solar has been adopted. So personally, I can't see a huge problem with putting solar on that particular area of roof where there are sort of visual screenings in terms of towers, etc., which will make it not so prominent. Also make the point, of course, well, the overriding point is it will reduce carbon and it will provide energy for the heat pumps. The heat pumps, I gather there's been some alteration to the proposal to make them slightly lower. They will be screened by railings which will integrate into the, is that right? Sorry?
They haven't come lower, sorry.
Just going on what Councillor Tinsley said.
Yeah.
And nevertheless, so as I understand it, they will be screened by railings which will integrate into the wall. I do understand residents' concerns about this. In terms of visual impact, I should point out there's a rather unpleasant toilet extension at the back of the building, which thankfully is going to be removed, but I gather there's going to be another extension there, so I do query why people don't raise an issue about that. In terms of noise, we've heard the experienced environment officer. He's done a full assessment and says there won't be a problem, but there is a provision that if there is a problem, then there will be further mitigation. Again, I sent details around to other councillors. You can actually put boxes, louvered boxes around heat pumps, which in terms of visual impact reduce that and also reduce the noise. But you know, again, I take the experienced environment officer on this matter. So basically, I'd like to propose that we approve this application. Seek a seconder.
I'll second Councillor Kamini. Any other further comments, please? Yes, Councillor Leather.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Bushby. I'm disappointed this has come back exactly as we discussed it at the last Plans Committee meeting, and we had a thorough discussion over it at the last meeting, and we raised the issues that we did at a push, at a stretch, and I don't accept the argument about the solar panels because they only generate a certain amount of electricity at certain times of the year. But if we are to have them in that roof, they should be set in. And if it's a case of cost, that's what it'll be. But to say that they're in there, and maybe in 25 years or less, they've got to be removed, you might get water leaking behind them. It's rubbish, that. Absolute rubbish. I mean, they're put in all over the country, these flush-facing solar panels. So if we are to have them, that's really what should be put in. But my main beef is with the air source heat pumps. I did ask a question, why this building is not going to be heated electrically. There are commercial industrial boilers, electric boilers, that will do the central heating throughout that building and also do the domestic hot water in that building. They are going to put some, as we've heard, in showers and things like that, but the whole building could have been done with commercial industrial electric boilers. And why that's not been considered, I don't know. The boundary wall must be part of the listed building, and we're knocking a great chunk out of that just to let some air into these industrial air source heat pumps stuck up on a metal framework at the back. So I don't know if anybody seconded Councillor Bushby, but I'll second that this is refused because there's a better system that could be put in to heat that building in it with electric, and we're having, as Councillor Hames likes to say, wonderfully generated electricity from these solar panels. Why not heat the whole building with electricity? So I'm seconding Councillor Bushby that we refuse it, primarily with me because of the air source heat pumps. And I'll just read, I mean, I'm sure everybody's read the Soundguard Associate Acoustics Limited, who did for the applicants the sound assessment, and the conclusion says the client should be aware that introducing a mechanical plant into an area without this type of existing noise source will consider that the new mechanical noise source is out of context with the immediate environment. You can't argue against that, can you? How much this sound assessment is worth, I don't know, because at the bottom it says Soundguard Acoustics Limited, 9 Field End, Bideford, Somerset. I don't know of any Bideford in Somerset.
I come back
Councillor
to,
Hames, yeah.
just on the point of electric boilers, I think I went into this for my own house at the time when I was thinking of heat pumps, and my understanding is electric boilers are really not that efficient. I don't know whether I could ask through you, Chair, Adrian.
No, Adrian can't, he was a public speaker, so he cannot ask, he cannot be asked any questions,
The
unfortunately.
planning officer, whether he knows anything about that through you, Chair? About electric boilers as a substitute for heat pumps.
I am unaware if that's been explored, but I would imagine that all options are explored as part of the review.
Well, my
review of the
understanding is
site.
they're very inefficient and use a lot of electricity, whereas heat pumps are very economic. They reduce carbon. They're used. I mean, they've been used all over Europe, in Scandinavia, particularly Germany, for years and years. So I don't quite understand the problem.
I mean, I was going to, because I know when Councillor Tinsley was talking, she stated that the pumps have been reduced in height or going to be lowered down. So obviously when the initial plan was they were higher, but now they've been reduced to where they are now.
No, they're the same.
The drawings are the same.
The same.
Same.
Right.
They haven't been lowered.
Would it be useful just to come back? So Councillor Leather thankfully read out part of the conclusion. If we just follow on from that, whilst the noise levels from this plant may not represent an adverse noise impact, according to the measurement methodology of BS 4142, a perceived negative reaction towards the new noise sources from nearby residents may still exist. So it's important to read all of that context and not just part of that conclusion. Just like that.
Okay. Any other, yes, Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I spent a large part of my working life as a recording engineer, working both indoors and outdoors. I'm very aware of how decibels are calibrated. As far as the noise of the the heat pumps are concerned, it's a constant noise. Now, if you're talking speech, it's a very intermittent noise. Now, constant noise is a totally different issue. So constant noise running from heat pumps, I can understand, would be very detrimental to people's quality of life. As far as the PVs are concerned, set-in PVs on the roof of the building would be very difficult to remove. We'd do quite a lot of damage to an existing roof. And if we want to take up future advances in technology, we would have to, first of all, remove the tiles or whatever we used. So it would cause, even temporarily, some detriment to the structure. So both of these things, I'm not convinced that air source heat pumps are particularly efficient. I'm sure they are, but it's just purely on the noise factor. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Pennington.
Well, thank you, Chair. I won't comment on the solar panels because there's various discussions going forward. It's the heat pumps, the noise levels. I was at the last meeting, November the 6th, and we discussed it at that point. The feeling of the meeting was that it should be refused, but we agreed to defer. I think if I pick up the flavour and honesty of that meeting, the way the meeting was. And I would just focus my comments around the noise from the air source heat pumps. First of all, can I congratulate our estates teams, because yesterday I saw they cleaned up outside here on the air source heat pumps outside Cadstone. It was growing a tree around it. And nobody maintains anything in Torridge very well, but I think our estates team are getting their act together, and I congratulate our estates team. But that worries me, particularly at the moment. There was a fire in Bideford last week, homeless people, sometimes looking for quiet areas. And is there any security around these air source heat pumps, first of all? And let me just say, I was in favour of refusing last time, but I agreed to defer. But I've come from a mind point of view that comes from the other side now. How can I approve this? And we've had comments about the noise, etc., etc. And I would just want to take you to page 61 and condition 16, if I may. Within 28 days from the receipt of a written request from the local planning authority determining that problems of noise level arising from the air source heat pumps are occurring, following a complaint to the local authority from the occupant of dwelling which lawfully existed. Now, there's no figure put in that condition. I just wondered if we could put a figure in that condition to give confidence that if there is a problem with noise and they meet a certain level, because what I fear is that the local authority will be assessing their own building without objectivity of somebody from outside. And I think we have to be very careful when we put this condition in, when we are then the judge and jury. And there's a lot of discussion this week about judges and juries doing the work together, for goodness sake. So
we are neither of those.
We are neither of those, but we are making judgment, quite frankly, whether this should be approved or not. And I want to see, I come across the bridge and I look at the bridge building on the right-hand side, as we sold a few years ago, and my great fear is that's going to go down into dereliction. I look at some of the listed buildings around the country where people don't do things to them, and because people are afraid to do things to them, that they become worse than they are before. And I think I would want to see something passed here, if I could, because I think it brings the buildings into the relevant times, meeting relevant targets. And just to say also, as a council, we know we're not meeting our net zero targets by 2030 by a huge shot. 100% I understand. And we're even talking as councillors that we should check out that net zero target anyway, because we're not meeting it and we are failing by a long, long way. So there's a huge issue there on the net zero argument being put forward. But is it possible so that I can try and think I could vote in favour, because I did want to vote against last time, but I agreed to defer. Is there a possibility to put a figure in there that's relevant so somebody can have some objectivity about the noise level of these heat pumps? Because we have to have something we can measure and not have the judge and the jury of the local authority judging it. I know it'll be active torridge and all the rest of it, but it's very difficult to get any scrutiny of what active torridge is doing. It must be objective, and we must have something that we can say that's above that level. And I just wondered if under 16 of page 61 of the conditions, we could put an actual figure. Bearing in mind at Westwood Hill, I think we tried to turn something down at 45 decibels the other day.
I've got the same comment, Councillor Pennington. We must have a strong condition number 16. So can I come back to the officer? Would it be possible to put a level on there?
It'd be useful to go, yeah. So you could do, and there are levels within the Soundguard report, which set out what an acceptable level would be. Just bringing up again, as you rightly brought up, this committee considered an application not in October where decibels were recommended and they were disregarded. There was no site assessment for Soundguard, and it was approved in Westwood Ho. So it's a bit confusing that now we have a site-specific application with a site-specific assessment, and concerns are being raised by members of this committee. So there are decibels in there that we can use to put into the condition.
If I could
Yeah,
just
certainly.
come in there as well. So any such condition, we would normally seek guidance from our technical expert, which is the Environmental Protection Officer, who isn't here today. If members were minded to approve and wanted condition 16 to be updated to include a baseline, a target measure in terms of decibels, that can certainly be done. But I would encourage that to be done maybe through Chair and Vice Chair and whichever councillors have raised that point, and at least to get some guidance from the Environmental Protection Officer. So I think looking at the decibels within the report, there's a range. I mean, the Environmental Protection Officer would normally direct 45 to 50 around that level, but it's all about context, of course, and what the assessment is saying. So it certainly could be done, Councillor Pennington.
I think that's vital that is included. Councillor Leather wanted to come back first.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. One is, I've heard some members mention our officers done a lot of work on this, blah, blah, blah. We sit here, should be independent-minded when we sit here, considering any planning application. We're not sitting here on behalf of one applicant above another one. So people should remember, if this was, we're looking at this as it is. You can talk about, and it should have been done, nothing's been done since the last meeting, which is irritating few of us, I think. The real problem is these air source heat pumps stuck up there on that metal frame and knocking out a chunk of that wall, which is part of the heritage, the listed building, that is part of it. And yet nobody's mentioned about knocking a chunk of that out to put railings there so air can go. Just do not do it. If this is refused, the applicants can look at the alternative source of heating. Now, to say it's not efficient, electric heating, it's used all over in flats, blocks of flats, commercial buildings, all over. I looked at a lot of it. I myself have got electric boilers in the annex at home, and it works perfectly well. It does central heating, hot water, fine. But you upscale it, and you could run all that building on electric heating. And if we're supposed to be going all electric with vehicles and all the rest of it, why isn't this building going to be all electric? Why do we have to have these noisy, and they are noisy, and they use a lot of electricity anyway to run them, these air source heat pumps. So, but my issue is the air source heat pumps, more than the solar panels. If they're going to be sat on the roof, so be it. But I won't support this scheme with air source heat pumps in that location set up as shown in the plans, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Pennington, you wanted to come back then, it's you.
Sorry, Chair, I forgot what I was going to come back with. I'll come back to you in a minute when
Right, Councillor Bushby,
to remember.
Just for clarification here, it's all very well officers going away and coming up with a figure for a decibel figure for air source heat pumps. The figures that they come up with will be for one air source heat pump. Here we're talking three. So potentially you've got three air source heat pumps running together. So three separate motors, it's...
I don't think, so the figure will be a noise level read at the noise sensitive receptors. So
when
we'll
you've
have
got all three going.
So we'll have a decibel reading.
So you'd have to install them and everything like that before you come up with this figure.
So essentially, if a noise complaint is raised, an officer will go out and leave a decibel rating there over an extended period of time, and then that data will be received back, and we'll see if that is breaching, and then mitigation will be put in after that.
And that was for all three pumps?
That would be all three pumps.
Not just one, yeah.
Mitigation, in my opinion, would be removal. I don't think there's anything you could do very much other than putting screens and things like that to actually mitigate it. So,
Potentially is
haven't convinced me.
bringing up as well. So there is a time condition on the use of the building up until 9 o'clock, I believe, after which the noise, the pumps don't have to generate significant amount of noise because they're not essentially working. They can be put to sleep mode. So after 9 o'clock, the noise generated from them will be substantially lower, if not nil. So it'd be worth you just bringing that up to committee members.
Okay.
Right.
You remember, Councillor?
Yeah, I can remember. I apologise. I'm getting to a stage that I can't remember what day of the week it is, but that's the life, I suppose, as it goes. What happens if we refuse it today? That's my question, because I don't want to see a building go into dereliction. I think we are facing a situation where we have a conservation building. We want to see it used. It's a wonderful building, but we're trying to protect heritage, and I totally value that. But also we've got to live in the 21st century. And if we refuse it today, what is the consequences of refusing? Can I just have some guidance of what happens should this be refused today? If that's a planning consideration, Chair, of course.
Well, I think it's rather an unfair question to
Yeah,
put to the officers.
Yeah, so that would be for the applicant, and obviously we're here as the planning authority, not the
Yeah.
applicant, to decide
Are
what
you
to do.
separate from the applicant?
Yes, we are,
You are,
Councillor
thank you
Pennington.
for that.
And of course, it was deferred at the last meeting for the applicant to reflect on
Yeah.
comments made by this committee around the solar and the air source. And it was the applicant's choice to bring it back as it was, because the feeling was, for all of the reasons explained by the speaker, that,
So if we
that this
refuse
is
it
the
today,
right
we will be here
proposal.
in January doing the same paper again until we get our arms twisted to get it passed. Is that what's going to
Well,
happen?
if-
It will
if
be a ping pong
If it's
between House of Lords and House of
refused today, then the councillors, the applicant would need to reflect on that and consider whether a new application comes in.
Okay,
an amended
thank you for
form.
your,
And
thank you.
that's the same with any application,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. Councillor Whittaker, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Well, having listened to what everybody else has had to say, I mean, I can't really change my mind. I want to reassure Councillor Hames, I would normally not oppose something like this. I understand where you're coming from. I value all the information you send round to enable us to think further about climate change. We all know it, well, I certainly know it's important, but we can't spoil things and not cherish things just because we think we must do something to every single building in the town in order to improve our chances of reaching a target, which, as people have already said, we're really not going to reach in any case. And that's sad because it is really important. What I'm really concerned about is that we're not going to ruin the building. The building has to go forward. We would be derelict in our duty if we didn't look after that building. All we're thinking about today is not having heat pumps and not having solar panels. And if the applicant wants to reflect, we deferred it so the applicant, sorry to say this, guys, reflected, and nothing changed. So I can't have any, I can't think to myself, well, it'll come back and it'll be better. Because why wasn't it better this time? Sorry, that's where I have to stand, I'm afraid. So I'm still going to refuse.
Councillor Hames.
Yeah, thank you. Just to pick up a point about what would happen, they'd probably put a gas boiler in, wouldn't they? Anyway, I stand by my original proposal, for which I got a seconder, but I do detect from certain Councillor Bushby and Councillor Leather, that they have a sort of faint sympathy for the for solar if it was integrated. Although obviously they're against the heat pumps, so I do wonder whether they might consider taking on board an amendment to go ahead just with solar, which is integrated into the roof.
We've got to consider what is in front of us today. We
Yeah,
can't.
but they could amend that. Councillor Bushby could amend his proposal, is what I'm saying. Seemed to me he was sympathetic to solar as long as it's the right sort.
Did the conservation officer wanted to come back?
Any comments on that solar, whether integrated or?
Well, I've recommended approval for solar panels, so I would recommend approval for recessed panels. It's more harmful for the building in the long run and has implications for the council taxpayer in the long run, but that's not what we're here to consider.
If I just come back, so that condition 10 of the report, if I just read that out to you, prior to their installation, full details and specification of the solar photovoltaic panels, including their exact siting and connections, shall be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority. There is nothing on the approved drawings that demonstrates those panels are integrated or not integrated. So there could be at discharge stage them being integrated, in my opinion.
Chair, the plans do show them on the roof, not set in the roof. And it describes why they've put them set on the roof and not integrated.
Right, we've had a long discussion.
Forgive me, please, Chair.
Sorry.
Just forgive me, just one more consideration is that the officers did provide evidence of an alternative solar panel that does sit into the aesthetics of the tiles. Am I correct in believing that that would actually leave a hole in the roof should they need to be removed? And with solar panels, it is possibly a crucial element that we need to consider. But I would like to consider the I'd like to consider the actual repairs and maintenance moving forward from any adjustments to the roof and to make sure that that building stays watertight and sound for our heritage, for the value of its heritage. So the only one thing that I have concerns over, I would like solar panels, I would like them to be the right ones to suit that building if we can consider that, please.
Thank you for those
Thank you.
comments. I mean, I am mindful to go with approval, provided that condition number 16 is strengthened with the necessary decibel levels included within that condition, which I think is absolutely imperative for the residents. So, any further comments, please?
Chair, just briefly that, if that condition is altered and brought back probably to the chair and vice chair to agree it, and there is a complaint, we all know once the money's been spent on those pumps and the installation of the wall knocked out, the railings, nothing will change. I'll tell you that now, nothing will change.
My concern.
Despite what you may put into 16, nothing.
Well, it's a better safeguard for the residents. That is my
The real safeguard is not to have them there.
Well, we're all entitled to our opinions, Yes, Councillor
And going back to 16, I want further under 16, if possible, that the assessment is made by an independent authority apart from Torridge, because you have to have the confidence of the residents that Torridge is not assessing themselves in this matter. So I really want to, bring modernity to what is a wonderfully old building. We've got to live in today's world. I was against, I'm trying to find the grounds to approve, okay? But I'm not happy with 16 if we are the assessing authority when we actually own the building. And I would, if you put something in there that it's independent of Torridge making the assessment, then I will vote to approve it. If you do not, I will vote against it. Because I think we've got to live in the modern world at the same time, but protect the residents.
So can we amend that to include an independent noise assessment?
It's open to members to require that. I think the reality of that, I think there's a couple things there. So the council's environmental protection officer, as we are sat here as a planning team, we act within our professional remits and our duties, our professional codes. Because it's a council building, it should be no different. And I think we would, as officers, be confident that the environmental protection team would look at that in the correct manner. Introducing a requirement to independently instruct and verify somebody, there would be potential timescale delays with that. There would be ongoing costs with that, which we can't predict at this point. So I think your officer's feeling wouldn't be necessary, but of course you're the committee, and if that is something you wanted, it's open to you to do it. But I just wanted to add our thoughts as officers on that.
Okay. Thank you for your response. Thank you, Chair, for allowing that question.
Did you have your
Yes, I
one
did.
final comment then?
Thank you, Chair. It strikes me that the main issue in front of us today is the heat pumps. If we do install them, it's been already said, how do we uninstall them later and how do we make good? That would be my main issue. I'm not convinced that they're the right thing. I don't think they're the right thing for the local residents. I don't think they're the right thing for this building. And to make that good, we can't take them out once, as Councillor Lither rightly said, once they're there, they're there. and I'm strongly against them. So I would be, if that's part of it, then I would certainly not wish to have them there. But that's the nub of the argument, really. I don't think we're quite as concerned about solar panels. They can be replaced if there is a problem, but it's the heat pumps that are the big issue. And there are alternatives, as we've been told, to that source of heating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, well, it has been proposed by Councillor Hames, seconded by Councillor Keneally, that the application is approved. Are you happy with the rewording of condition 16?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so you
And
accept.
can we just be clear on in terms of those putting the motion forward for approval? So I think officers' understanding of that is in consultation with the Environmental Protection Officer, having regard to the independent assessment that's been undertaken, to incorporate a level, a noise level within that condition. Is that the only amendment that I'm moving
That would
forward
be
with
an
it?
independent assessment.
Well, no, in terms of amending the wording of the condition to relate to a level, it would be with regard to the independent assessment that supports the application, but in consultation with the Environmental Protection Officer, and that would be agreed with Chair and Vice Chair before being issued, and could also be agreed with yourselves if you are moving and seconding that. It's whether you want to incorporate the requirement for any noise complaint to be independently assessed.
Yes, I'd like that. Yeah. Yeah, his proposal, but I'd like an independent assessment, as Councillor Pennant suggested. Yeah.
So you're both in agreement with those amendments then?
Yeah.
Would it be useful if something within that wording of that condition, the results of any surveys were publicly available, so they can be reviewed against the Soundguard report? Would that make members more satisfied that there's no?
I think it makes it more robust, condition 16, if that's included.
May I respond, Chair?
Yes,
my concern is public perception. The Clapham Omnibus Man, the reasonable member of the public perception, because I don't think it's safeguarding enough at the present moment. I would really want something strong in there to say that the assessment would be not made by Torrid District Council, which is contrary. So I will vote against, actually, on the situation on that basis. That's where I'm coming from.
What's the problem with an independent assessment? I can't understand.
Officers just provided some comments on that earlier in terms of not considering it necessarily being necessary as part of that condition, and some concerns around the practicality of that, and actually confidence in the environmental protection team to have their own independent professional view. The case officer has suggested an alternative could be a requirement for transparency purposes to make any assessment of a noise complaint publicly available, or the other option put forward by Councillor Pennington, and I believe also suggested by Councillor Keneally, is to include within that condition if there are complaints, that they are independently assessed. So it's whether as proposer and seconder you want to include that independent assessment
I prefer
requirement.
an independent assessment.
Yeah, I'll second that.
So we've given it a thorough discussion once again, and proposed by Councillor Hames, seconded by Councillor Keneally, that the application's approved. And I'm taking that one first because it was seconded first before you seconded.
No, I
Councillor.
did it right at the beginning. Sorry. No, I did propose.
The first proposal was Councillor Bushby's
No, it
that I
wasn't.
seconded.
Councillor Bushby proposed first of all, but it wasn't seconded straight
I
away.
seconded it.
After, but Councillor Hames had then proposed approval and Councillor Keneally immediately seconded it. So that was the first. Well, we can look back on the recording.
The vote is whatever it is.
And you're quite right, actually.
So I will go with the first. It has been proposed by Councillor Hames, seconded by Councillor Keneally, that the application is approved with the strong amendment to condition 16. Can we please go to the vote for approval?
Councillor Bushby.
Against.
Councillor Hames.
Or
Councillor Keneally.
For.
Councillor Leather.
Against.
Councillor Locke.
For,
Councillor O'Rourke,
Abstain.
sorry, what was that?
Abstain.
Councillor Pennington,
Against.
Councillor Smith,
Against.
Councillor Whitaker.
Against.
Chair, that's 3 for, 5 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. So do we need to go to the, no? So there's no need,
We need to be clear on what the reasons for refusal are, because I don't think that.
all
has-
right,
has
right,
been
yeah.
clear,
So I,
everyone knows what they're voting.
I assume your refusal reasons are going to be the same as last
Absolutely,
application, is that correct? Or do you want to reconsider them?
Air source heat pumps and the
Yeah.
solar panels. As currently presented.
So in terms of if we deal with the air source heat pumps first, is it conflict with policy DMO1 around amenity? So it's that
Visual
concern,
impact and amenity. etc.
which are separate things. So we've got the noise concern. Policy DMO1 requires there to be significant harm on residential amenities. So you need to be satisfied that it hits that bar, notwithstanding the position of the Environmental Protection Officer and the evidence provided. So I would say that's a refusal reason in its own right. And then on heritage grounds, are you saying both the impact of the heat pump and the solar panels?
In their current
As
form.
they stand in their current
Okay,
form.
so, and that would bring in policies ST15 and DMO7 and section 16 of the NPPF, particularly para 215, which the information before you recognised as less than substantial harm. So the requirement is to weigh that against the public benefits. So you would need to be satisfied that less than substantial harm outweighs the public benefits. So I think that just needs to be made clear in terms of your motion for refusal. Is that the case?
It is the case, yes.
Chair, can I clarify, is the proposal that include the wording of solar in its current form, or is it as a
Well,
complete
it's just been refused. The way it's been presented to us has been refused. If
We've
as-
already come to that decision, so I
if-
don't think there's any need for any further discussion.
So does it open the case that you could come up with another application for an integrated solar panel?
Potentially.
So that, but I just wanted to clarify the refusal reason so that when you all go to the vote, you know what you're voting for.
We don't need to go to the vote now, because it's already been refused.
Yeah, but there's no need to go to the second. Yeah.
But it's not, that was a vote against approval. I would have thought we'd have to.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
No, I would have thought we have to get the vote.
I think
to
Stacey will
refuse.
come in on that.
Okay, sorry, it is Stacey.
We go by legal, yeah.
Yeah, I were to go for the proposal, by not accepting the grant, it's, I mean, we can vote, it's just not.
Well, there is no need, because
I think perhaps for clarity, it's been,
I
you know,
think we're only having this discussion because there was a second proposal to refuse. If we just had the one proposal to grant and that was lost, there would be no discussion to be having at this stage.
It's happened before in other cases where both have failed.
We
though.
have to. Yeah.
I think for absolute clarity, we will now go to the, all right,
That's fine.
legal's going to.
Chair, it's open to the applicant to
come
bring
back,
a fresh application addressing the solar panel issue and the heating.
Right, so
the heating's done
what final advice have you got then?
We'll leave it where it is.
Right, so the application has been refused. Right, application B. Is the LBC application for the same.
do we have to go through this all again, Chair, just
If
because?
I just run through the plans quickly, everyone's aware of the site, if I just run through the plans.
I would have thought the fact that we've already voted.
If the officer wants to go through it quickly, then,
It's a different application, so it needs to be
It's the same result.
Yeah.
considered.
So this is the list of building consent associated with the previous planning permission, planning application. If we just zoom through. There's the location plan, again, it is a listed building, grade 2. We'd only see the photos, so we'll go through them quickly. Here we have the location plan, the north elevation proposed, the east elevation as proposed, south elevation as proposed, West elevation as proposed. West elevation again. Courtyard elevations. The site plan. The ground floor plan. The first floor plan. The second floor plan. The gym roof schedule of works. The gym section. The internal door schedule. And the material planning considerations in this one are the impact on heritage assets and the impact on protected species. Recommendations for approval.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Tinsley has registered to speak against this one, but I think she's gone, has she? So we've got no public speakers. So I now throw open the matter for discussion. Yes, Councillor Leather.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I noticed that one of the issues that we raised last time, the doors into the town hall, which were being taken down and some horrid modern looking things were proposed to be put into place. They're going to have purpose-made doors now to match the existing and fire-rated doors, and they'll be put in. So I'm pleased about that. But under the listed building consent, where do we stand with knocking a hole through the wall for these air source heat pumps? I mean, listed building consent, I don't think we can give it, to be honest, because of that issue. Because we've not addressed, for the listed building, we've not been able to address the issue of these air source heat pumps and the effect knocking a hole in the wall, boundary wall, which is part of the listing.
Our officer will come back on
Yeah,
that.
so what's before you, Councillor Leather, is just purely the listed building consent element, but that relates to both the internal and external works to the listed buildings. So the material considerations are the impact on the heritage asset as a whole, including internal, as distinct from the previous application where the internal works you weren't considering. I hope that clarifies that.
No, it
Councillor
doesn't.
Bushby.
It doesn't clarify it. So what we're asked to consider other things other than just the air source heat pumps and the solar panels.
The
Internal works to the
alteration.
building as well.
I move it's refused, Chair.
Yeah, I've got no option other than to refuse that because there's no detail in that.
Is that a seconder?
I'm certainly seconding Councillor Leather, yeah.
And is that for the reasons we discussed before around the conflict with policies ST15 to
Yes.
MO7, section 16, sorry, of the NPPF, and there is also the duty under the Planning Listed Building Conservation Area Act to preserve that statutory duty on it. So it's the combination of those.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, and
Seconder?
the damage to the listed building by the alterations to the boundary wall.
Any further comments then before we go to the vote? Right, so it has been proposed by Councillor Leather, seconded by Councillor Bushby, that the application is refused.
Chair. Councillor Bushby.
For.
Councillor Holmes.
Again.
Councillor Keneally.
Again.
Councillor Leather.
For.
Councillor Locke.
Against?
Councillor O'Rourke.
Abstain.
Councillor Pennington.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Whitaker. For. That's 5 for, 3 against, 1 abstention, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, moving on to application number C, application 1/0064, 25 full, the new Children's Day Nursery and associated external works at Langrid Reference 242796, 12269 and it's on pages 77 to 107 of your agenda. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Yes, Councillor Pennington.
Chair, yes, just to say I am the ward member. I called it in as a member of the planning committee. I come to it with an open mind.
I'll now ask the officers to give the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so application 1/0064 2025 FUL. The Children's Nursery and associated external works, Buckland Borough.
Can everyone hear?
Just about.
No, they can't hear.
Okay,
Could you speak up, please?
Yep, okay, so like yesterday we received a letter from Historic England. This is the fourth letter now. They were consulted on some locations that the applicant felt couldn't be achieved for the nursery because of flood risk and safety for the children. So putting it within the farm itself would have been unsafe and against the ethos of the nursery. We received a letter, so that's, I think it's been sent round. Helen?
No, it's on the portal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they basically disagree that the alternative locations haven't been looked at. Yeah, I mean, it's on the slide. So there's plenty of land within the holding, and the government advises that diversification should go on agricultural land. So this slide shows it in relation to Bideford and wider area location plan. This has been amended and the application was restarted. So we received the application in February, but it was restarted, so that's why it's taken a while. This is land that they own, the applicant owns, the holding plan. The farm is about 960 metres to the east. Flood zone map that was asked for, I believe, to show that the sites near the farm, it can't be sited near the farm due to flood risk. So this is a photo of Orley Court Manor House, and I'm going to read something out. So Orley Court is a substantial medieval manor house of 14th century origins and subsequently altered and updated over several phases, 15th, 18th, 19th centuries. After the Second World War, it was in multiple occupancy and was left to decay. It was converted to flats in the 1980s. It is Grade 1 listed building. It was listed in 1952. It's identified as being within the top 2% of all listed buildings in England. There are 2 lodges associated with the court, and these date to 1870. J.H. Akewell was commissioned to update and remodel the site by the new owner, Thomas Rogers. In the Country Houses of Devon publication, the 2 lodges are noted to guard the front drives. A formal listing has been circulated to committee members. The lodges do not feature in this listing. However, that does not negate or remove the status and heritage terms, as it is necessary to apply legislation, policy and guidance on principles of curtilage and setting. So expert opinions have been provided by Historic England and our Conservation Officer, and these identify the application site is within the setting of Grade 1 listed Orley Court, and that Lower Orley Lodge forms part of the curtilage and is therefore curtilage listed. Furthermore, the experts both disagree with the position put forward with the submitted heritage impact assessment. The 1980s changes in ownership and alterations do not erase the historic association of the features of the court or the fact that they remain within the setting. The setting may have changed in character, but still to a degree, but still includes the wide area. So members have also been provided with published guidance on setting of heritage assets 2017. Regarding curtilage, it's noted that Lower Orley Lodge was in the same ownership of the court at the time of listing, was built as ancillary and was located reasonably close to the court at the start of the approach.
The public cannot hear you. Could you please speak up? I just had a complaint that the public can't hear you at all. Sorry.
Yep, no, that's fine. Lodges were built to oversee and control access, identify ownership and promote larger estates along major thoroughfares. While a 2003 application for dormer windows did not have an accompanying listed building consent application, this decision was made prior to the curtilage guidance being published in 2018. So this is the wider estate, and the aerial image identifies Lower Orley Lodge in red and its corresponding lodge in blue, and the Grade 1 listed Orley Court in yellow and Orley Farm in green. As I said, Orley Farm is located 960 metres from the application site to the east. The aerial image clearly shows intentional and planned positioning of the lodges in red and blue along the main road to Buckland Borough to act as visual landmarks to Orley Court. Their function was clearly intended to be as gatehouses. Orley Court cannot be seen directly with the lodges, however this is the point of their function, as they would not have been needed if it was visible from the highway. A barn to the south was subject to planning application in 2022, and that was considered to be curtilage listed. So the application site aerial image shows the application in relation to the access and lodge. This is not the main entrance to Orley Court, however this does not matter in heritage terms and in the assessment. As identified by Historic England and the Conservation Area, the application is within the setting of Orley Court and Lower Orley Lodge, and in a location which forms part of the experience of approaching the court via one of two historic drives.
Could you please ask her to speak up, because they can't hear at all.
The lodge was built to serve as a visual advert for the medieval manor house, and open areas of green space have been retained on either side of the access, demonstrating its visual status and prominence in the landscape and from the highway. This green space forms an important function for the setting of both the court and the lower lodge. Okay, so these are photos of the lower lodge from the road. Yeah, and the that's the higher lodge first, and then the lower lodge. Higher lodge. This is the site itself, that's the entrance. The entrance will be widened, so that is one of the concerns as well, that the site will be more visible with the access widened. This is the site itself, an oak tree that's going to be retained on site. And that's a track leading across towards the farm.
They can't hear a thing back there. Which is important that they do hear what the officer is saying.
Did you want to start again?
They haven't heard a word.
They can't hear you, do they?
Okay, is it maybe better on that side, maybe?
We will start again so you can got more clarity on the sound.
Do they want
Get
to
a
come?
microphone here next time.
Do they want to come closer?
We're not allowed.
Can you not read it out, Alan, or not?
You, Chair, could read it out.
Yeah. I can read these bits that have been prepared. If we go back to the start,
Then everyone's got a fair opportunity.
so I don't think you need to go over that bit again, Deb, or that bit. This is the ownership plan, so this was submitted to show the extent of land owned by the applicant. So within the blue lines, which does extend beyond this image, is the total land holding. Again, the flood map has been provided because as part of the locational justification, the applicant has indicated it's not possible to locate the nursery within certain parts of the land holding due to it being flood zones 2 and 3. So this is what this map shows. Do you want me to do this bit, Debbie? Shall I read? Okay, so
Sorry, on that previous, where is the property on that map? I couldn't quite see
I'll
it.
just zoom
We'll
in.
come to that in a minute.
Oh, sorry.
So
okay.
can you see where it says Lower Lodge?
Yes.
So that's the application site is there.
Oh,
If I just sort of go back, but you can see the wider context of land owned, and I think that paint sort of purpley line is the flood zone. Is it? I don't know. I'm not sure what that signifies, but that just they need to be read together.
Thank you.
So in terms of the heritage status, you'll see the recommendation before you. It's fundamentally around heritage. So Orley Court itself, which the image shows, this is some sales particulars, is a substantial medieval manor house of 14th century origins. It was subsequently altered and updated over several phases in the 15th, 18th and 19th centuries. After the Second World War, the court was in multiple occupancy and was then left to decay. It was converted into flats in the 1980s. Orley Court is a Grade 1 listed building of exceptional architectural and historic importance. So this identifies it as being within the top 2% of all listed buildings in the country, in England, specifically. 2 lodges are associated with the court, one at the head of each pre-existing entrance drive. These date to 1870 and are by J.H. Hakewell, who was commissioned to update and remodel the site by the new owner, Thomas Rogers. The Country Houses of Devon publication, which is quoted at the top right corner there, noted there being 2 lodges and their purpose being to guard the front drives to Orley Court. The formal listing record for Orley Court has been circulated to committee members. The lodges do not feature within that listing. However, this does not negate or remove their status in heritage terms. Not everything will feature in a listing, and matters of curtilage and setting are determined by applying legislation, policy and guidance on the principles of curtilage and setting. In the case of this application, those assessments have been provided through expert opinions from Historic England and the Conservation Officer, and both of whom identify that the application site is within the setting of Grade 1 listed Orley Court. This is the view of both the Conservation Officer and Historic England, and that Lower Orley Lodge forms part of the curtilage of Orley Court and is therefore curtilage listed. That's the assessment that's been made by the Conservation Officer. Now, Historic England, both in their guidance and the various responses they've provided, do direct it is for the local authority to establish whether it is curtilage listed or not. The heritage experts both disagree with the position put forward within the submitted heritage impact statement. The 1980s changes in ownership and alterations to the carriageway at Lower Orley Lodge do not erase the historic association of these features to the court, or the fact that they remain within its setting. The setting may have changed in character to a degree, but it still includes the wider area. Members have been provided with the published guidance on setting, namely the Setting of Heritage Assets 2017. Regarding curtilage, it's noted that Lower Orley Lodge was in the same ownership of the court at the time of listing, was built as an ancillary building to the court, and was located reasonably close to the court at the start of an approach drive. Lodges were built to oversee and control access, identify ownership, and promote larger estates along major thoroughfares. While a 2003 application for dormer windows did not have an accompanying listed building consent application, this decision was made prior to the curtilage guidance being published in 2018. In terms of the wider estate, I'll just reiterate what the case officer said. So this aerial image is to identify the key components of the estate. So Lower Orley Lodge, the application site is in red. Its corresponding lodge access from the main road is in blue. The Grade 1 listed Orley Court is in yellow, and Orley Farm is in green. Orley Farm is located approximately 960 metres from the application site, so between the red and the green. This aerial image clearly shows the intentional and planned positioning of the lodges in red and blue along the main road to Bucklandborough to act as visual landmarks to Orley Court. Their function was clearly intended to be as gatehouses. Orley Court cannot be seen directly with the lodges from the main road. However, this is somewhat the point of the lodges and their function, as if the court could be seen directly from the road, then that role wouldn't have been required. A barn to the south of Orley Court, you can just see sort of completing that triangle with the yellow and the blue, was subject to an application for conversion, I believe back in 2022, and that application was assessed on the basis of it being a curtilage listed building. So if I just do this bit, and then I'll hand back to the case officer who can run through the rest. So this is a zoomed in aerial of the application site. It shows the application site in relation to the access and the lodge. It's not the main entrance to Orley Court, as was noted at the site visit. However, this does not matter in heritage terms. Historic England have been very clear on that, and the assessment that is required by the decision taker. As identified by both Historic England and the Conservation Officer, the application is within the setting of Orley Court and Lower Orley Lodge, and in a location which forms part of the historic experience of approaching the court via one of two historic drives. This is regardless of whether this particular drive is currently in use to approach the court. The lodge was built to serve as a visual advert for the medieval manor house, and open areas of green space have been retained on either side of the access, as you can clearly see from the image, demonstrating its visual status and prominence in the landscape and from the highway. This green space forms an important function for the setting of both the court and the lower lodge.
Right, so this is a slide of the lower lodge. And the entrance to the lodge. And that's the higher lodge. And this is the entrance to the application site. And this is the application site itself. And that's where the building is proposed with the oak tree to be retained. And that track goes off to the main farm. So it sort of goes along a ridge to the main farm. And to the right, as you go round to the right, that's Orley Court, but you can't see it from the lodge, as we've said. So this is a wider view of the area, and this view is of the lodge from Littleham. And this is a view from the road up towards Littleham, looking back to Bucklandborough. That's the same view from the bottom of the road before you go up to Bucklandborough. And this is the wider area, so scanning across towards the farm. Proposed site plan. This is the elevations of the building. And a section showing how it will lie on the land on the site. And then the material planning considerations are here, and it's all in the report. Basically, in terms of principle, it doesn't meet with the community facility principle, but it does meet with the agricultural diversification policy, although it doesn't meet Part C, which is about the impact on the character of the area. And the local planning authority have taken a very pragmatic approach with DM15 to allow it as an agricultural diversification project. But we've been in quite lengthy discussions about that and agreed that it can be agricultural diversification. So all the other matters are resolved, but heritage impacts is not resolved, obviously, for the significance of Orley Court and the various expert advice. So NPPF 213 is relevant, as it says, we think the local planning authority think there's harm, and where there's harm, you must show clear and convincing justification that there's no other sites available. So given the fact that there's 230 hectares or something of the land, Historic England and the local planning authority believe, or of the view, that alternative locations haven't been looked at. Okay, so
Chair, can I just clarify? It's 230 acres, not hectares.
250 acres.
250.
Yeah.
I thought the.
Yeah.
She
that-
said hectares.
Yeah,
Which is more.
okay, material considerations. Just this bit? Okay, so given this, the application is recommended for refusal due to the proposed development causing unnecessary and unjustified harm to the setting of Grade 1 Orley Court and Grade 1 curtilage listed Lower Orley Lodge, as the building, parking area, associated paraphernalia and landscaping will detract from the visual dominance of the lodge and this entrance point to Orley Court. The development will be visible in views from the north and west, detracting from the rural setting due to their incongruous nature. There may be an alternative location for the proposal within the applicant's extensive land holding, which removes this harm and visual intrusion, but alternatives have not been robustly explored and there is no clear and convincing justification for the harm. Given the Grade 1 listed status, the greatest level of weight must be applied to the heritage assets conservation. So your officer's view is to recommend refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll now go on to the public speakers list. Our first registered speaker is Councillor Stavey Brown, please, if you'd like to come to the front. And you are speaking on behalf of Buckland Brewer Parish Council. Yeah, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am hence David Brown, Chair of Buckland Brewer Parish Council, who are fully supportive of this planning application. Orley Court is a Grade 1 heritage asset and its protection is vital. However, I believe the officer's report overstates the extent of harm and does not give due weight to the considerable public benefits, nor to the safeguards and concessions the applicant has already made. The proposed modest single-storey building of rural character will not compete with or diminish the visual importance of Lower Orley Lodge. Existing hedge banks, new native planting and a carefully managed layout ensure the proposal sits quietly within the landscape. Any alternative sites are less accessible, conflict with agricultural operations, or would result in a greater landscape or heritage impact, not less. The chosen site is the only one that meets operational, safety and environmental requirements in a balanced and deliverable way. Historic England's objection regarding the archaeology can be fully resolved excuse me, with the agreed programme of investigation, which is a standard and proportionate form of mitigation. The National Planning Policy Framework places great weight on the need to create, expand or alter early year provision, and it strongly supports a prosperous rural economy, especially where proposals such as this one meet local needs and strengthen rural communities. The North Devon and Torridge Local Plan also acknowledges the extensive opportunity for rural diversification to help sustain employment and support rural communities. This proposal is exactly that and would initially employ up to 6 qualified staff with potential for growth as demand increases. Devon County Council has confirmed the lack of funded early years places, and this application directly addresses a documented need that also supports local working families and the long-term sustainability of Buckland Brewer. Members, this application delivers urgently needed early years places, skilled rural employment, managed diversification supporting the local economy, and sensitively designed scheme with heritage and archaeological safeguards in place. Any heritage impact is less than substantial and must be weighed against public benefit. Here, that balance falls decisively in favour of approval. For these reasons, I respectfully ask you to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Dead on 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Rosemary Beer, please. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Our children deserve the very best start in life, and that is at the heart of our proposal. We have applied to create a wooden-clad nursery building set beside woodland on the edge of our family farm. This setting would place children in the heart of nature. They'll be connected to the landscape and they'll experience the rhythm of the farming calendar. As I currently childmind from home, already this year the children have helped feed the lambs at lambing time and they've harvested potato with pups. These experiences enrich their development in ways that other settings simply cannot. I myself bring over 19 years of experience working in the early years sector, from managing large nurseries, preschools, holiday clubs, as well as teaching in an outstanding British school in Dubai. My aim, therefore, is to use this expertise to help empower others to create high-quality childcare provision for our local community. We have complied with every survey requested of us, and the only remaining objection is that from Heritage. However, the proposed building is dug down into the site, away from both my home and a long distance from Orley Court. We have explored every acre of the farm, and this is the only spot that is underutilised and in a safe position for children to be in. The track is also private, belonging to my father, and Orley Court do not have any right over it. One recent suggestion was to remove part of the woodland to relocate it. However, this goes completely against the purpose and values of our nature-based setting. The need for childcare locally is clear. Torridge has the lowest number of childcare spaces in the entire UK, and nationally there's a well-reported shortage. Parents are struggling to get back to work for any amount of time because they simply cannot find places. This nursery would help address this need, even in a very small way. It's really important to highlight we have received no objections from neighbours or the public, only strong support for how well needed and the benefits of a rural, sustainable, nature-embedded environment is for children. As the world changes and the future of work evolves, one constant remains. Children need to develop respect for the natural world and grow up with an understanding of sustainability. This nursery would give them that foundation. I am so passionate about ensuring that early child is filled with these opportunities to grow, develop and thrive in a really outstanding environment that places nature at its core. I believe children deserve this and they truly need it. Thank you for your time.
I think you've all been practicing dead on 3 minutes ago. Our next speaker is Rebecca Fernley, please.
Feel pressure to do it in 3 minutes now. Good morning, Chair and members. I'm the agent for the application and I've been involved with this application since its inception. We've been through a rigorous process of assessing the farm and agreeing a location for the proposed building that meets the requirements of the farm diversification whilst ensuring the setting meets the requirements to create a rich and engaging learning environment. It's a bit disappointing to come this far with the application and it be recommended for a refusal on the basis of heritage impact. This is heightened by the fact that it's something that is so fundamental to the application that it wasn't even mentioned in the pre-application response from the officers that there was a heritage concern at all. This teamed with the fact that we're talking about, yes, a Grade 1 listed structure 460 metres away from the proposed site that cannot be seen in context of the site, and the officers' long distance views showed that, but also a building that's been converted into flats in the 1980s with domestication of the gardens, subdivision of the gardens. All of those would have had a much huger impact on the heritage of the building. As already stated, the floor level of the building is set 2.31 metres below the existing lodge and away from the roadside and screened by a hedgerow, along with extensive new planting and landscaping measures as well. But I don't want to wish to dwell on the negatives because there's so many positives about this application that I feel should be supported. Rosie is such an experienced early years practitioner and has led a vision of what she wants to achieve. She's been a truly inspirational client for us. The opportunity for children to be educated in this rich environment with exposure to farming activities and everything great about the rural environment is unique in Torridge. There are no other examples of this in Torridge that cater for under twos. We were involved in another farm diversification scheme in North Devon, which is Springfield Nursery in Marwood. This is a popular and successful preschool and nursery based on similar principles. Farming is hard in the modern world, and to be able to add another feather to the cap of the farm will sustain the income for the family and provide for the family. Its rural location also means it's perfectly located to serve the parish and surrounding parishes. Nothing but letters of support, including one from the MP, Sir Geoffrey Cox. The family have poured their heart and soul into this application, and the farm has invested significantly in bringing this application forward with all the significant information. It's well considered, and Raising the Beer family are totally committed to this being a high-quality proposal that Torridge can be proud of. They have been resilient and patient through this application, even though the application has been in the system for nearly a year. We hope the committee can see the greater good of this proposal and feel able to support.
You've been practicing as well.
Thank you for your time.
And last registered speaker is the ward member, Councillor Hicks, please. You are not limited to 3 minutes, so.
And can you speak up?
I shan't speak longer than 3 minutes, don't worry. A few months ago, unfortunately, I had to go to a Bucklandborough Parish Council meeting. And I accept that they are different, they don't agree anything. Our solicitor has been there a number of times to meetings because of the problems. And yet when this application came up, they were unanimous, probably for the first time in many years. They wanted to approve it. But when I look at this application, I become cynical of the whole planning process. This is 11 months since this was first submitted. And what are the grounds for refusal? The curtilage of the listed building known as Orley Court. As far as the system is concerned, Orley Court was largely abandoned in the 70s and early 80s, to the extent that it was converted into about 14 flats. The stable block at the rear was also converted into 14 flats. Not 14 perhaps, but quite a lot. In granting planning permission, a certain council called Torridge consulted Devon County Council over it. And in the Devon County Council letter, dated I think it's 18th of March 1983, if it's to be approved, the existing access way, I've got to put my glasses, sorry. The existing access along shall be effectively and permanently closed to the satisfaction of the local planning authority as soon as the new access is capable of being used. So all the reference you've had this morning about the view from the access way and how it leads into Orley Court, the planners have said thou shalt not use it for Orley Court, let alone the fact that Orley Court doesn't own it. It's owned by the applicant. Now, the dwelling or Lower Orley Lodge, is it listed or is it not? For your information, as the crow flies, it's 400 metres apart from Orley House. And within that 400 metres is a rise of ground and a block of woodland. So you can't see one from t'other. If you want to drive it by the public highway, I can tell you because we've measured it, it's 1.1 kilometre. So how far does the curtilage stretch? If we have a listed building, let's say a church, and they want to build a new rectory in the grounds of the church, it'll definitely be within 1,100 metres So that tends to indicate that the new rectory will be caught with the listing. All gets a bit cynical, doesn't it? Particularly when you read the first report from the heritage people. Because they don't know whether it's listed or not. They actually say, and I'm quoting from your agenda, it is for your authority to decide if the lodges are curtilage listed buildings. So the person who wrote this wonderful report didn't even know if it was listed. Couldn't make up his mind. And then he goes on about the setting and the development and all the lot. To be perfectly honest, yes, Orley Court should be listed. Yes, architecturally, it's a grade 1. But by golly, hasn't it been altered? You know, it's going a bit far. And then we're told, but this man's got another 250 acres. He can find somewhere else to build. Just like that. Now, we all know the planning system. If a farmer wants to build way away from anywhere, what's the chances? Not very good. Taking it further, Orley Farm sits within a floodplain, it's badly accessed, and it's a working farm with machinery. It's a health and safety hazard with young children. I know Orley Farm, I know the ground, and if you drive around it, there is not one suitable alternative site. It's all very well saying there's 200 odd acres, there must be. There is not, unless you're going totally out into greenfield site, which is not what planning should or does encourage. So, all in all, I'm very cynical at the reasons for the refusal, and I would ask you, for the sake of Buckland Brewer and the other villages around, please approve this one. We need this development, and we need it now, not after 11 months, to be perfectly honest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. You did speak for longer than 3 minutes, and you said you weren't going to. Right, that was the end of the speakers, so I now throw the matter open for discussion. Who'd like to kick off, please? Yes, Councillor Hames.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just a bit concerned that this committee hasn't had enough information, really. We had a site visit on Zoom, and we weren't shown, as far as I remember, weren't shown the design of the building, were we?
Yes, you were.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, the other thing is we were, Historic England, as has been said, has expressed concerns about the setting, which includes the drive and Orley Court. Well, why didn't we see a video going down the drive and the approach to Orley Court? It seems we haven't had the full information, really. But, the other point I wanted to make was it's an open countryside, proposed site. Presumably that will require people to use their cars, which is against policy. I'm just curious, is it designed to cater for Buckland Brewer Village, and how many children will be attending, or is it designed to function to serve a much wider area, in which case there will be there will be car use involved. So it makes one wonder why it can't be located within a settlement rather than an open countryside. Also, it's been slightly confused about what the purpose of it is. It says, I think, described as forest school. Well, and then on the other hand, it's described as associated with a farm and getting children to appreciate what goes on in farming. I'm not quite sure what the point is. As far as nature-based, I can't see that there is much nature around that particular site. It's flat fields, agricultural fields. I mean, there's one at Takeley Court Forest School, for instance, where it's within woodland and is clearly sort of related to nature. So I'm slightly confused about that as well. Just make those points, really.
I can come back on some points and the case officer can supplement. So in terms of the location, Councillor Holmes, the principle of development section of your report makes an assessment, as you would expect, by your officer, and that confirms that policy ST22, which is the main community facilities policy, that it doesn't comply with that, because that policy directs uses like this to the main settlements in the district for obvious sustainability reasons. However, as advised by the case officer, officers have taken a very pragmatic view around policy DM15, which relates to farm diversification. And there have been lengthy discussions on this. You'll see there's an assessment of the proposal against policy DM15 in your report. And subject to a legal agreement tying it with the farm, it is considered that it could be assumed as a farm diversification proposal. So that's where the principle comes in, Councillor Holmes. In terms of the extent of area it's going to serve, I'm not aware that there's a limit in terms of geographical area. That would be for the management of the nursery, how widely it's I guess it's supply and demand really, isn't it, as to what the capacity is and where those families would come from. But yes, there would be a need to travel by car quite clearly to get there. The comment about why the location is there, the applicant has spoken about what their ethos is and their approach. I think officers were questioning that link with the farm when it's so far away. However, the applicant has indicated safety concerns around proximity to the farm buildings. The reference to woodland, and the agent mentioned, the agent or the applicant around woodland, I think as an alternative location, given the extensive land holding, it was raised whether it could be incorporated within the woodland, which would sit with the ethos and that proposal, which would remove that concern around the siting at that point of entry. However, the applicant advised they didn't consider that would meet with their ethos. So that's just a bit of background from a policy point of view, Councillor.
Sorry, can I just come back, just to clarify, I didn't mean to say that it was all, I can see it's on the edge of woodland, so would the point be that the woodland would be used as part of the school, as a forest school?
We believe so. It's not within the red line, but the land is within the ownership of the applicant as shown on the land ownership plan.
Any other questions, please? Yes, Councillor Whittaker.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you, Councillor Hicks. That was a great help. Well, you know, I'm a great I'm as bad as Councillor Pennington now, swallowing my words. Thank you. I'm a great supporter of heritage normally, and I always have to think about, you know, if there's going to be any impact on any of our more valuable and cherished buildings in the area. But I can see this is quite a long way. And I understand about Kirtledge, obviously, because I usually take a great interest in this. But it is very, very spread out. And I just sometimes wonder just how far you can push Kirtledge if you really want to think about it. A great supporter of diversity for anything to do with farming, hugely needed these days. I sometimes wonder how on earth many farmers actually manage to survive in the current climate, and I don't think actually any government helps them at all, which is really regrettable. I'm sure there's a need, because I don't think there's any kind of provision in that area at all. I do know Orley Court. It's a beautiful building from the outside, but I've never been inside, so I can't comment on that. I think it's a shame it's been recommended refuse in some respects, and it obviously is really around the heritage aspect more than around anything else, by the sound of things. So I don't know, I hate to say this, because I'm a real supporter, I got the red right this time, of heritage, but I'm just thinking on this occasion, perhaps I can park the heritage and think about the need. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Leather.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'd like to compliment all the speakers we've had this morning on this application, particularly from the parish council and Councillor Hicks as well. But I thought everybody spoke well. This issue of curtilage, we've had it many times at Plans Committee. Sometimes officers want to say curtilage is the immediate environs of a dwelling. Then they say, but if it's separated by a boundary, a hedge or a fence, the other side of that fence or boundary isn't part of the curtilage. There actually is no definition of what curtilage is. There isn't. So curtilage is what planning officers decide for a given application it is. The listing for Orley Court, and I've got it here, shows the plan which encompasses, there are outbuildings at Orley Court. They're all covered by the listing. The lodges, both lodges, were built subsequently. This curtilage judgment on wants to be involved in a listing only came out, this advice in 2018. So I don't believe this is part of the curtilage of Orley Court personally. When you look at the photographs we had of Lower Lodge, there's a comparatively new extension on the rear of it. There's an awfully ugly metal flue for obviously a log burner in there that really is an eyesore. The site itself, I think, is ideal for this kind of development. Low-level single-storey, timber-clad, looks fine. There is a huge need, obviously, for it. And I'm going to move that we approve this, Chair.
I'll second that.
Because I don't accept it's part of the curtilage. If somebody wants to say it is, they can say it, but it's so far away. The curtilage of Orley Court, it has no impact on it at all on Orley Court, this proposed development. No impact at all. And the views from that were shown from away, and I went out looking around the area the other day. You wouldn't even know this was there once it was built. There is a landscaping scheme with it, and I think the need and the diversification, agricultural diversification, and the need for this in the area overrides anything else. And it really is all down to heritage and curtilage, what the refusal is written out as it's written. But I know Councillor Hames doesn't like motor vehicles, so he probably wants parents to bring the children to this place on horseback or on donkeys, and then might be happy with it. But it certainly is in the countryside. To say it's not, I'm sorry, I did laugh at that, because it most certainly is. So I'm happy to move approval,
So
Chair.
you will have to come up with some policy reason. Did I hear there was a seconder?
I did.
Can I just come back?
Yes,
Just have a
Councillor,
I
yeah.
have a thought. It's unlikely, I know, but just supposing in the long term this application or this proposal doesn't work, does that then allow the applicant to develop that into a house, a home? Maybe it doesn't matter, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, so if members are minded to approve today, and I think there's a few comments that officers need to make to support you in deciding whether that's the right direction to go. But in terms of the use of the building, Councillor Whitaker, there's a policy within the local plan which allows for conversion of redundant or disused buildings to residential. The use of that building, if it isn't restricted solely to a nursery, all manner of uses could come forward, which could be more harmful and would be very different in nature to what's before you. So
have we restricted it?
Well, we're the recommendation's refusal, so there aren't any conditions,
right.
but members may want to consider restricting the use. It all depends on how you're assessing and justifying it in that recommendation, whether if it's not needed, that building has to be removed. These are options that are open to the committee. I think it might be helpful, subject to hearing more comments, for the Conservation Officer just to provide some clarification, because there are issues of curtilage and setting here. They're distinctly different things, and there is sort of a a legal process that needs to be followed in assessing this. So we just need to make sure that is followed. But I'll leave you, Chair, to decide at what point you may like to bring the Conservation Officer in.
Councillor Pennington.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to congratulate the speakers, especially Rosie Beer and the agent. And very good job from Parish Chair Buckland Brewer and Councillor Hicks. So I'll put all four in there for the speakers. Page 79. A whole list of things that has been sent in, I take it mostly by the applicant. How much has a business got to do to justify itself to get going in the countryside? Because I see the countryside economically being destroyed by Torridge Local Plan. Now, I'm not on a local plan joint policy planning committee, but I see this local plan killing our economic rural area and providing wonderful opportunities for youngsters as well. And bear in mind, I'm an open mind because I called it in on highways at the original, and that is, I think, has been clearly satisfied. So that was my original call in as well. And what, for me, is a legal question, and I think curtilage has been answered now this morning. There is a delinking between the court and the lower lodge. And I think there's been, again, I mean, I don't want to reiterate, but the speakers really summed up the argument that I was going to make it from this point of view. I finally point out that there is Buckland Primary School, Monkley Primary School, Harkin Primary School, Abberton Primary School, and Westcroft Primary School, all within a circle that parents would want to choose sometimes to have a wonderful place to bring up children. And I noticed the comments about natural England and heritage, natural England and historic England, whatever, and finding bones and axes and goodness knows what else in the fields. Now, I've found all sorts of things in the field when we've been around. And I've even found arrowheads. You know, if you're lucky enough to find something that's, we're close to Bideford. And historically, we've got Mesolithic sites that go back hundreds of thousands of years, if you like. And people were there milking the cow 100,000 years ago, as they are milking the cow today. But they didn't have opportunities to diversify from that point of view. So, and I just wondered, there's something about living in a rural area that really centres a child back in living in nature. And we've lost that in our urban environment. And I think there'll be many parents who want to choose this opportunity to have this sense of season. I saw your pictures up there, and I know some will call it a green desert, but you can see the trees grow in the spring. Leaves come in the spring. You see the leaves lost in the winter. You get the frost. Just to live by the clock of nature and a yearly change, I can see the wonderful opportunity. And I do get annoyed that we have to link this to farm diversification to justify it. This should be justified in its own right, surely. And that's where I think our local plan is totally failing us, because we're talking about farm diversification and not the economic well-being of our rural areas. And I think there's a huge issue for our joint policy planning committee to address, which I don't think they're doing. So I think that needs bringing forward. And lastly, I would say, I grew up driving out past Hooper's Water, and you go to the right when you come down the bottom of the hill, and you go out towards Yule Vale. And there was a lovely old house there that was allowed to fall down because nobody could find the ownership of it over the years. I go to Stephenstone House that was broken up back in, and I think it was about 1945, if I remember rightly. Annery House has been lost because they can't keep it going. There's so many houses that are struggling to keep going, but we must live in the 21st century. And on balance, now we've answered the curtilage problem and you're satisfied, I think I'm going to vote in favour of this. I hear anything different. So I'll leave those comments with you, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, did you have your hand up to speak?
Really, I was just going to say that I support everything that Councillors Leather and Bushby have said, and also, in fact, everything and councillor Pennington, so I think it makes total sense.
Right, at this stage, has any councillor got any questions for our conservation officer?
I'd like the conservation officer to have a go, yeah. Through you, Chair. Just to explain really why the
If you would like.
the question of curtilage really, why it's significant.
Yeah, Chair, if I may just highlight the legal and policy tests that need to be applied here, and then I think it would be sensible for the conservation officer to come in and comment on matters of curtilage and setting, because then both of these are before you today. Just sort of reflecting on Councillor Pennington's points, I mean, you'll see from the report that officers are very supportive of this venture and have taken a pragmatic approach in applying policy DM15. You're right that there isn't a policy that allows for this use anywhere. There's always material considerations that can be brought in though if there's evidence of need. So really we're talking about the refusal reason that's before you, which is on heritage grounds. So both the Conservation Officer and Historic England have indicated this is within the curtilage, but also the setting. They are two different things, and you need to be satisfied on both. And both of those trigger consideration under the Act, so the Planning Listed Building Conservation Area Act, and the NPPF and our policies. And your statutory duty is to start with the plan. So, you know, firstly, you need to come to a view as to whether it's in the curtilage and whether it's in the setting, having regard to the guidance and the advice before you. If you deem that it is one or the other or both, then paragraphs 212 and 213 of the NPPF require, before anything else, before any balancing exercise, does it have to be in this exact location? So that's where the refusal reason stops, because it's not considered that there is justification in that location. If members then consider it, yes, it has to be here, that is when you then apply that balance of public benefit versus harm. Now, because officers weren't satisfied it had reached that point, I don't believe a level of harm is articulated, but it can range from substantial to less than substantial and a whole range there. So I just wanted to be clear on the approach that's needed to lawfully determine this. And I think if I hand over to the Conservation Officer now, she can provide some guidance around things like curtilage and setting.
Yeah. Historic England are usually very reluctant to nail their colours to the mast, as we've found in the past with various items that we've had from them, and they are very loath to appear. However, they are very happy to delegate to the local planning authority. So the tests that they've given us, they give us rafts of advice, as you've already received, so we have to go through it. The test for curtilage, and you're quite right, Councillor Leather, it does change with whatever it is. I mean, if you're a terrace house, it's a very small curtilage. If you're Shebbeare College, it's a huge curtilage. So, and Shebbeare is listed. So the next thing is they give us a test in the Planning Act. It says here, listed building means a building which is included on the list, yes. It also includes any object or structure fixed to that building, or any object or structure within the curtilage of the building, and they say this, which although it wasn't fixed to the building, formed part of the land at 1948. So at that point, as we pointed out, Orley Court was in a really poor state in 1948, and it was saved by being turned in, flats is a bit demeaning, apartments, of which apartment 1 is most of the medieval hall and building. So at that point, Orley Court, a grade 1 listed building, which we're pretty short of, as you've pointed out in Torridge, because most of the other ones have disappeared. And I was very interested to look, we have 3,000 listed building entries in Torridge. That's not necessarily 3,000 buildings, because list entries can include terraces of houses. However, we have 20 grade 1 listed buildings. Of those, 8 are not churches, and this is one of the 8 that isn't a church. So, interestingly, it was first listed in 1952. Buckingham Palace was first listed in 1970. So this is how early this building was valued. So as we're going on, I consider that although the lodges were later, they're clearly part of the owner in the Victorian Times' view that he's pointing out how important his house is. And as you travel up to Buckland Brewer, which I have done for years, I didn't realise that they were both lodges, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, they look like lodge houses. And lo and behold, the application comes in, they are lodge houses. They clearly identify the gateway to this important estate. Moving on from that, the setting is different from curtilage because, as you saw from your, I'm not going to go into it because you've got the property, the guidance from Historic England. Setting depends on public perception, and so setting can be much wider than curtilage. And that's all I need to say because you've seen the slides.
Thank you very much. I mean, yeah, from my point of view, I entirely agree with what Councillor Hicks said. And I mean, the applicant has tried hard to find alternative sites. You know, some areas are in a flood zone, and we all tragically know what happens if you have children running around near farm vehicles. So, you know, all that area of the working farmers out. So I do agree that this is the best setting. And it definitely forms part of a farm diversification scheme, so it fits in with ST22, as it does DM115. So I will also be supporting the application. Any other comments? Let's go to the
Can
principal.
I add NPPF 214, where the process will lead to substantial unless we can show otherwise, and I think the weight in favour outweighs. And that's on NPPF 214.
Just on that point, Councillor Pennington, that refers to development which will lead to substantial harm to or total loss of significance of a heritage asset.
But I believe this is demonstrating a balance. We have to argue a balance here. Am I?
Yeah, so
if we come for reasons to approve, which
as I just sort of set out that sort of series of considerations. So the first question is it in the setting, is it in the curtilage? You need to satisfy yourselves on both of those points, either way.
Okay.
But with regard to the guidance and the advice you've had from the experts, if you deem that it is within the curtilage and or setting, then paragraphs 212 and 213 of the great are of relevance at that point. So 212 puts this duty, which is consistent with the Act, that says when considering the impact of a proposed development on the significance of a designated heritage asset, great weight should be given to the asset's conservation. So that's, and then 213 says any harm to or loss of the significance of a designated heritage asset should require clear and convincing justification. So that they're the points. So is it in the setting? Is it in the curtilage? Is it in both? If it is, does it have to be in this location? If it does, what is that level of harm? And then you weigh it against the public benefits. So it's just important that we follow that process.
Thank you. Yep.
Just one other point then, if it's passed on ST22 as part of farm diversification, is it going to be tied to the farm, so it couldn't be
Yeah,
sold
so-
separately to the farm business?
So, and that's really important because SD22 officers have said isn't applicable because it doesn't allow this use in this location. But DM15, we've taken a pragmatic approach and have said it can be considered as farm diversification. But officers, we would routinely then tie it through a legal agreement to the farm because that's the basis for your justification. That means it can't just be sold off as an independent venture because there wouldn't be the policy support for that.
Yeah.
So there would be a mechanism for tying it. If members are minded to approve, there is a need for a legal agreement to secure off-site highway works as well. So there would be two elements
Yeah.
to that legal agreement, just to give you some
So is the
guidance there.
proposer and seconder happy then that we add that condition about tying the school
So
to
we-
the farm business? Yeah.
And that's the business case that's been
Yeah.
put forward, so that would be totally reasonable and appropriate, but also the highway works as well.
Yeah.
But again, we just need that clarity around setting and curtilage. Does it have to be here? And then you've clearly expressed your support for this and the benefits of this use. but we just need to go
yeah,
through those earlier.
Well, I think the applicants have clearly, submitted that it needs to be there because they cannot find any other location for the school. So, yes, Councillor Whittaker.
Well, I'm just going to come back and say, I can't be in Kirklees altogether. Regrettably, there's no way I can, being the person I am, and I'm concerned about the setting. But also, because it's on balance, the need to have this, in the end, drops me on the other side.
So the tilted balance comes into...
Yeah, so paragraph 215 is the balance, but you would have to satisfy yourselves, yes, it's recognised it's in the setting and or curtilage. What is that level of harm? Is it substantial? Is it less than substantial? I don't know if the Conservation Officer feels able to comment on that, because there hasn't been an assessment provided by the applicant on that, I believe.
No, and from my point of view, because the guidance is so clear, basically, does that building need to go there in heritage terms? No, it could go anywhere. It could go on the edge of the village. It's just that that's not before us. So at that point, the heritage just says, no, it doesn't need to go there. We didn't do any further assessment because it's a yes or no. No, so that was the end of it. Because obviously, when members take these decisions, they know that obviously heritage is irreplaceable. It's a precious thing that is very fine. And the decisions members make now are not temporary, they're permanent. The decisions that you make last forever.
Yes, Councillor Ames.
Well, I suppose there's possibility that we could propose deferment subject to receipt of an assessment of other sites within the area.
I think I see lots of nodding heads.
We have had
I
that.
don't think that's going to...
We have had some assessment of other sites which have been disregarded from you.
Oh, you as sorry through you, Chair. You as an officer have done
Yeah, the applicant has submitted a number of sites that it couldn't be there because
Right.
of flood risk or...
which we haven't seen.
It's on the portal.
Historic England were consulted and then they sent the letter yesterday.
So the verbal update yesterday doesn't change the recommendation. It's their comment back on the commentary on land use, it's called. So Historic England do not have commented that the assessment does not consider if a very small area of land currently used for agriculture could be used for the nursery site, and they have cited government research and statistics. They have indicated the pasture and arable land within the holding amounts to 250 acres. We therefore disagree that there is no alternative location for the nursery. It should be noted that there are several options that would entirely avoid the harm to the Grade 1 listed building that we have identified, and their recommendation remains the same. So it's whether members feel that the information that has been submitted, so firstly, do you consider it to be in the setting in the curtilage? If so, has it been justified that it can only go here?
I mean, my comments on what you just read out about Historic England saying it could go elsewhere, there's nothing more important than general local knowledge that know the area, the land, etc., etc. And I wonder if Historic England have ever been in Warmthar.
I bet they have. Yes, they'll have done a desktop.
Yeah, and anybody that knows the area knows that Buckland Brewer has had a lot of housing developments. Therefore, younger families, the person that I bought my home from was moved to Buckland Brewer with 3 young children. So I think that we need to consider how to facilitate them as public members, and they're part of that constituency.
Chair, if I could just to help with this deliberation, because it's important that this is a robust decision. I think the Conservation Officer would. This is in the absence of an assessment from the applicant, which is required. Sarah, would you like to give your view as far as you can around the level of harm?
Yeah, I think we would say that it's less than substantial harm, but we have to, because it's a Grade 1 listed building and because of the permanence of the harm to it and the setting, we'd have to say it's a higher level of less than substantial.
So if members, having gone through those stages I've described, get to para 215, then you're weighing that level of harm and consideration in the context of a Grade 1 building against the public benefits of the scheme. Okay.
Chair, just for clarity, Sarah's comment, higher than, but lower than. Is there a grade for?
Yeah, there's a.
Can you just explain that, because it's a play on words here you're playing?
Yeah, Historic England are obviously never like to, as I've already said, be maybe specific, because obviously they have input from myself. Now, if it's, they do give a definition, so substantial harm basically is the eradication of any of the heritage
It's
merit.
not that, no.
So knocking it down, ripping all the guts out if it was a house. So that's fine. But there's also harm that's less than substantial. So if you think about London, so you have St Paul's Cathedral, and then you have a large building next to it. So that actually, it does harm the setting. It doesn't eradicate the importance of St Paul's Cathedral, but I would say it has a higher level of less than substantial harm because of the impact on it.
Right. And can I just clarify a second thing about this concept of setting? This is a very nebulous concept. You know, I mean, curtilage was what I came in uncertain about this morning, okay? That's been answered. Setting. Now, you can put something in the setting, I will like it, you won't like it, vice versa. It's very much like our policies, again, it's subjective to how we view things. And there's no criteria again. We're holding something up to hold something up for the sake of holding something up.
You do have the guidance document. That's why Historic England have produced their guidance on setting. It was meant to sort of clarify matters. But again, so we have, you know, the solar panels on the roof of the town hall. Yes, that affects the setting. It affects the setting of the building and the conservation area.
Okay.
You'll recommend approval.
Right, well, I think we've given a long and thorough discussion. It has been proposed by Councillor Leather and seconded by Councillor Bushby that the application is approved. And are you going to quote
DM 15.
Yeah.
DM 1.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. DM 1. Yeah.
ST 22.
Yeah.
ST 11 brackets 3.
Yeah.
DM 07 brackets 2.
Yeah.
MPPF 15.
215.
215.
215. Yeah.
And when you see the reasons, the policy reasons for refusal here, and you look at the paragraphs of the MPPF quoted, it's not in conflict with them. It really isn't if you read them, in my view. But as Councillor Pennington said, lots of our policies are very subjective, and you can read them that way or you can read them that way. And it depends on what the application is in front of us, whether you feel a planning policy supports something or it doesn't. They're not explicit to the degree that you can't say that supports it, that doesn't. I just feel, and I've got to say it, I think Councillor Hicks touched on this, when this application came in 11 months ago, and here we are now, why did our planning department not look at this and realise the benefit of something like this would be to the environment and try to support it rather than looking for every reason to turn it down? None of
I
us.
don't think you should sit. I don't think you should sit here and criticise the planning department.
Yes, I
Councillor
can. If
Leather.
I want to, I will do. If I think there's justification.
I think that's rather unfair, Councillor.
No, it's not
Leather.
unfair because besides, when you look at when our department, when Torridge's planning department look at an application, they should look on whether it's the kind of thing that is needed and should be supported in the area. And if it is, then they should try to help that applicant to do it. Now, here we are after 11 months, when I reckon everybody in this room will support this application.
I'd rather you didn't.
So I just think.
I don't want this to dissolve into an argument. It's
not an
unfair to
argument.
criticise the planning office
But
at this
it's not-
stage.
there's people out there say the same thing to me all the time.
They might
that
well
they
say
want
the same
help.
thing, but this is not the
want-
place to debate this now.
They want help with applications rather than
Just to clarify.
obstruction.
Right, I'll
The-
just give you,
the-
yeah,
um,
Kate Thompson
the
wants to come back
application
just
was
quickly.
restarted, so halfway through. So there was a lot of discussion at the beginning about highways because the visibility display couldn't be achieved. So they got in contact with a landowner across the road who could then give them a bit of land to achieve the visibility. So Mike Newcomb actually went out and spoke to the highways person and everything. So it's restarted because the red line had changed. So that restarts it completely. We didn't have a heritage impact assessment, which we needed. The BNG, Biodiversity Net Gain, needed to be redone, and that was incorrect, and Devon County Council were involved in highlighting that that was incorrect and that needed changing. So I have done the best I can to get it to the nearest committee that I could, you know, with all the information ready. And even that, we had Historic England yesterday come back, so we are right up to the line.
I'm not criticising you at all, Debbie, I'm not.
Yeah, so that, we've
It's
done
the
our
planning,
best.
it's the planning department I have some issues with.
Well, can you take that up personally? Yeah.
Yeah,
if
we
I-
have to get
There are
around
more
the
important
heritage
issues.
matter, that, because it is really important, and Historic England could judicial review the decision if we're not legally correct. so-
Any decision we make can be
Yeah.
judicially reviewed, yeah.
Right, I think the
Yeah,
planning
I think just on that council level, I'm very happy to have a chat with you. I think if you are concerned, please come and speak to us, because, you know,
Well,
and
I try
and
on
what
the phone, you never
what
get
I
through
would
them.
what I would say is well over 90% of applications are approved. It's a very small percentage
Yeah,
are
they are,
refused, and officers are working incredibly hard to meet timescales.
And I worked at a
I
forest
don't
school
think
once.
this is the place where the planning department should have to justify themselves. So, it has been recommended for approval by councillor Lever, seconded by councillor Bushby, quoting all those policy decisions. So we'll now go to the vote to approve the application.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Bushby,
4.
Councillor Holmes,
Abstain.
Councillor Keneally,
4.
Councillor Ledder,
4.
Councillor Locke,
4.
Councillor O'Rourke,
4.
Councillor Pennington,
4.
Councillor Smith,
4.
Councillor Whitaker. So, abstain. Thank you. That's 7 for 2 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you very much. So the application is approved. Thank you very much.
Have you got the reasons you need? I'm not leaving until they leave. And
Just wait.
That was wrong.
Right, now moving on to application number 8, the appeal decisions, pages 108, 121. Only, yes, Councillor
Chair,
Keneally.
I've got a pecuniary interest in one of these appeals. Do you want me to leave?
You don't need
No?
on that,
no.
no.
Right, they're my landlords.
Okay.
Can I comment on that one? Very interesting reading. You know, this was passed by the officers, but it wouldn't have been brought before the committee had it not been a member of the family. And I find it's a disadvantage sometimes to be a councillor because, I mean, my brother had to bring his applications. It cost him £238,000 because it would have been approved and he wouldn't have had to put reflective glass in. But you didn't have to do an Appledore, for goodness sake. You know, and there's a double entendre again, how Torridge works here.
Yeah. So 9, costs and appeals, there are no costs. 10, delegated decisions, AGMB, page 122. And then the planning decisions, pages 123 to 130. I just want to turn to a minute, 123. I'll go through them one at a time, quickly. Right, page 123, 124, 125. I note the fourth one down, permission in principle, up to 7. Now, that wasn't called in and that was granted, and yet when we had a planning in principle application in front of us, we came to a different decision, didn't we? Because we thought, so I just found that interesting, that planning in principle was approved. Yeah.
It's a different site, that's
Well,
the
yeah,
edge of a
yeah.
village, and actually because it was 7, some affordable could be achieved.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was a very different proposal in a different location.
And Stibcross was in a higher level.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a village.
Yeah.
As well,
It's
yeah,
a
I
village.
got that one, yeah, thank you.
126, 127, 128, 129, and 130. I thought the deemed position was quite interesting, because it hadn't been determined.
Peter, that up.
Oh, sorry, Peter, yeah.
I was just interested in it's not determined deemed permission and
Yeah.
not permitted development. Can you explain those ones and quite clear what they mean?
Yeah, so deemed permission is where something complies with permitted development. And then so it has deemed consent under the general permitted development order. Not permitted development is where that's not the case and it needs a planning application.
Thank you.
Right. So, there's no part two, so I declare the meeting closed at 12:05. Wish everyone a happy Christmas, and we'll see you in January.